What's up, guys? We got to have a heart to heart because I'm hearing a lot of people say week two is a down week in college football. And it's not a down week. We get to watch college football. We haven't had it all season. So week two is not a down week. There's plenty of good games, and I'm going to break them down for you right now, starting with the game of the week, Michigan versus Oklahoma. And honestly, I keep going back and forth on this one. On one hand, Michigan is starting a true freshman quarterback on the road against the Brent Venables defense, and that should raise every single red flag there is. We've seen so many young, talented quarterbacks fall apart in this exact spot against veteran defenses. But here's the thing, Bryce Underwood is not your normal true freshman. That dude is a beast. You've never heard me talk about how good Arch Manning is going to be on this channel, but Bryce Underwood, I think he's going to be incredible. And here's why I'm not afraid of this spot for Michigan. We've seen them in these kinds of games before. Last year alone, they beat Ohio State, they beat USC, they beat Alabama in that bowl game, and they did it with basically no offense. Plus, they've got a defense that just keeps reloading, a running game I expect to rack up yards, and honestly, the most talented and most athletic quarterback I've ever seen play at Michigan in my lifetime. Meanwhile, Oklahoma is the darling of the season. Everyone loves them, but I still have some questions about them. We don't know exactly what we're going to get from their offensive line, and that's not a unit you want to have questions in when you're going up against this Michigan defensive front. The run game is also pretty shaky, I think. We didn't really see them do much in week one against their FCS team, and we don't even know if Jay Knott's going to be healthy and able to play, or how much he's going to be able to play in this game. So I want to make it clear, I am not doubting John Mateer. He is a flat-out stud. There's a reason he's in a lot of Heisman conversations, but if the O-line looks like it did last season, he can only do so much for this team. They have to be able to protect him, and I'm not sure that they can. And I know it's in Norman, Oklahoma. I know Michigan is starting a true freshman, like I said. I know Mateer is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, but I am still taking Michigan. I think they're going to pull the upset, so give me the Wolverines. So next up, let's talk about Kansas versus Missouri. Both looked really sharp against inferior competition, but Kansas impressed me a little bit more because one of their wins came against Fresno State, who's, a bigger G5 program. Still, this is the real first test for both of these teams, and I think this is the game where we see the true trajectory of both teams. Now, if you saw my SEC preseason rankings, you know I'm lower on Missouri than most people are. Luther Burden and Brady Cook aren't there anymore, and I just don't see that same level of talent on the offense. The big question for me is quarterback. Beau Pribula can run the ball, no doubt, but I just don't trust him as a balanced quarterback yet. He looked fine against the FCS team in week one, but I just need to see it against real competition, and let's be honest, he only won the job because his competition got hurt. He probably would have won it anyways, but that kind of strengthened it, and that made me feel like Missouri's not confident in him quite yet. And outside of the tight end, Brett Norfleet, I don't see too many dangerous weapons around him. Their defense is solid, but it can only cover so much. On the flip side, Kansas has the best player in this game in Jalen Daniels at quarterback. When he's healthy, he can tear up any defense in the country, both through the air and on the ground. I also really like the O-line that Kansas has built. It should open up the run game and give the rebuilt receiver group opportunities to make plays. The one thing that does concern me about Kansas, though, is that their linebacker core is a little bit banged up, and that could allow Missouri's run game and Beau Pribula to break off a few explosive plays on the ground. But at the end of the day, I just don't trust Missouri's quarterback or their offensive weapons. Meanwhile, I do trust Jalen Daniels. I do trust Lance Leipold as a coach, and I like the direction of Kansas as a program. So I'm rolling with the Jayhawks. I know it's an unpopular pick, but I think Kansas is going to be a real problem this season, and I think Missouri is going to flame out. Moving on now to the Cy-Hawk rivalry. It's always close, and more often than not, it does end up in Iowa's hands. And honestly, I was ready to pick Iowa again this season. They brought in a quarterback who I thought might finally breathe some life into that Iowa offense. He was a great passer at the FCS level, but then week one happened, and he looked exactly like every other quarterback before him. Rough, really bad. His stat line was terrible. Meanwhile, Iowa State gets the game at their house. They already knocked off a higher level opponent in week one, and they've got a lot of returning experience, and Rocco Becht is clearly the better quarterback right now. But here's the catch. They had all of that last year, plus 2 NFL wide receivers, and they only beat Iowa by 1 point. This year, those weapons are gone, and I still believe Gronowski has a higher ceiling than what Iowa has rolled out at quarterback in the past. And of course, this is still Iowa's defense we're talking about here. They are going to keep Iowa State's offense in check. So after all that, I am still picking Iowa to win this game. I am a lot less confident than I was before week one, but I'm going to stick with the Hawkeyes to grind this one out. All right, let's move on now to Illinois versus Duke. And the Illinois hype train has been something really interesting to watch this offseason. At first, they were everyone's secret sleeper team. Then so many people started calling them their sleeper team that the hype got kind of bloated, and suddenly folks were saying they were overrated. But me, I'm still in the camp that Illinois is a sleeper team. They've got a ton of returning production, strong coaching staff, and they looked really sharp in week 1. I know that the competition wasn't great, but still, they look great. Now, Duke, it's a bit of a wild card. Manny Diaz is a great hire at coach. I like the quarterback transfer they got from Tulane. But in week 1, it just didn't click right away. They figured it out later in the game, but it was obvious that they were still working the kinks out against Elon. Yes, Duke does get home field advantage here, and they also have a passing attack that can turn dangerous. But when it comes down to it, I just trust Illinois' experience. I trust their physicality. I think they can go into Durham and control the game. Give me the Illini. Now let's talk about Baylor versus SMU. And for some reason, not many people are talking about SMU. And I don't really understand why. I mean, they made it to the ACC championship game. They made it into the college football playoffs last year, but they get treated like an afterthought. I don't understand. Not for me, though. Rhett Lashlee, I think he's an incredible coach. Kevin Jennings is a really good quarterback. Yes, he has some ball security issues, but he's dynamic, and I actually like him a lot in this matchup, mostly because of his mobility. We already saw Baylor struggle against the mobile quarterback in week 1 when they played Auburn and Jackson Arnold. Now, to be fair, SMU is not the same team offensively that they were last season. They lost several of their top-end receivers and their best running back, but defense, it's better than people think. Meanwhile, we know what Baylor brings to the table. A high-powered offense, Sawyer Robertson, he can sling it, and they're going to score. But there's a blueprint to beating Baylor, and we saw it in week 1 against Auburn, and that's mobile quarterbacks and a ground game, something that I think that SMU can capitalize on. I mean, we saw Auburn run the ball right at them, and the defense for Baylor never adjusted, so if SMU leans into that, and Jennings able to get things going with his legs, they can absolutely win this game. And here's something really interesting to me. SMU gets the advantage of already seeing Baylor's weaknesses on tape. Baylor hasn't had that same chance to study SMU because their week 1 game doesn't tell you much. And I think that matters. So with home field advantage, a proven quarterback, and a defense that's better than people expect, I'm riding with the Mustangs. Give me SMU. And now we have Vanderbilt versus Virginia Tech. And this one is super interesting to me because it's a fun matchup we got last season. And I think these teams are still pretty evenly matched. Virginia Tech does have the home field advantage, and it's a night game in Blacksburg, which is never easy. From what I saw Sunday, they've got a solid defensive line, a passing game that showed flashes, and a quarterback who can make some big plays, but also has some really bad ball security issues. And the big red flag is they didn't score a single offensive touchdown. Vanderbilt, on the other hand, comes in with a little bit more mystery. They've got more tape on Virginia Tech than Virginia Tech has on them, and that's, like I said, a real advantage. And of course, they've got Diego Pavia. The guy is tough as nails, a total gamer, and honestly, a little bit of a psychopath in the best way. Even if Virginia Tech's quarterback is more athletic on paper, I still give Vanderbilt the edge, at least at that position. Pavia also has his favorite target back, plus some new receivers, and this offense feels scrappy even if it's not star-studded. The offensive line has been rebuilt through the portal, which is a little bit of a concern because I actually liked what I saw from the Hokies' defensive line. It was disruptive last weekend, but I still think that Vanderbilt is better equipped to handle it this year than they were last year. And at the end of the day, Vanderbilt looks much improved on defense. They've got more offensive weapons than they did last season, and Virginia Tech just feels like a team that lost too much to make a big step forward. So give me the Commodores to pull this one out. Now, before I let you go, I have a few games I want to talk about, but not really break down too much because I still think they're important and they could be pretty interesting games. First off, Florida versus USF. And if you couldn't tell by now, I'm a Georgia fan and a Florida State fan, so I have no love lost for the Florida Gators. That said, I am feeling a little bit of sympathy for how hard their schedule is. It's absolutely brutal, and it just keeps getting tougher. USF was supposed to be the easy game on the slate, the cupcake before things really heated up, but instead, the Bulls decided to go out and blow out a playoff team in week 1, and now the matchup looks a lot more interesting. Still, I'm not going to overreact to this game. Florida, yes, they look sloppy against their FCS team, but at the end of the day, the level of athlete that Florida puts on the field is just way higher than what USF saw against Boise State. Now, USF's win over Boise State wasn't a fluke. I think the Bulls might be the best G5 team in the country this season, but Florida is one of my top teams in the SEC, and any team in the top half of the SEC should be able to handle this level of G5 opponent. So I'm picking Florida here, but you better believe I'll be rooting against them. Now let's quickly talk about Oregon versus Oklahoma State, and there is not much to say here at all. Oregon should roll. Honestly, if Oklahoma State won, it would be an even bigger shocker than Florida State taking down Alabama, and the betting market reflects that. If Oklahoma State pulls this off, I mean, it'll be the upset of the season, honestly, but I just don't see it. Ducks are going to win in a blowout. Now I also want to talk about Ole Miss versus Kentucky, and this one's a little more interesting because Kentucky actually won this matchup last year in a pretty similar spot, but I just don't see that happening again. Kentucky still has a really strong defense. That's the backbone of the team, but offensively, it's not great. Like, we're talking worse than Iowa right now. kind of bad. And they struggled against Toledo in week 1, and they just didn't inspire any confidence in me. Meanwhile, Ole Miss has the firepower to stretch the field and score quickly. And against the Kentucky team that just can't keep up on offense, I think the Rebels will win this one comfortably. And last, but certainly not least, let's talk about Arizona State versus Mississippi State. This is a game that a lot of people expect to be pretty close. I don't see why people think it's going to be such a close game. Arizona State brings back most of the team that got them into the playoffs, minus Scadaboo, and Mississippi State is still very much in the middle of a rebuild. I don't really see any advantages for Mississippi State here. The Sun Devils are deeper, more experienced, more talented, just across the board. So give me Arizona State in a no-doubter for me. All right, guys, that's all for this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which game you thought that I completely whiffed on and which game is your sleeper game for the week. Peace.